In October 2025, a bitter and protracted budget standoff in Washington triggered a full-scale government shutdown, sending shockwaves across the nation. The deadlock between lawmakers was more than just political theater. It was a standoff with real consequences for millions of Americans, as negotiations broke down and hope for a quick resolution faded. Federal agencies shuttered their doors, national parks locked their gates, and hundreds of thousands of government employees were suddenly furloughed without pay. Essential services slowed to a crawl, and the ripple effects were felt in every corner of the country, from small towns dependent on federal jobs to major cities grappling with uncertainty. Among the most deeply affected were the nation's 1.3 million active-duty service members. These men and women continued to serve, standing guard and fulfilling their duties, even as their paychecks were threatened and their families faced mounting financial stress. The sense of duty clashed with the reality of unpaid bills and growing anxiety at home. Inside the Pentagon, leaders faced a moral and logistical crisis. How could they ask troops to risk their lives while their loved ones at home worried about making ends meet? The uncertainty weighed heavily on military families, who found themselves caught between service to their country and the basic need for financial security. The situation sparked outrage from veterans groups and the broader public, who saw the shutdown as a betrayal of the nation's defenders. Protests erupted outside government buildings, with veterans and supporters demanding action and accountability from elected officials. As anxiety mounted and the crisis deepened, an unprecedented and mysterious offer of help emerged, one that would ignite a fierce national debate about patriotism, influence, and the role of private money in government. The country watched, transfixed, as the story unfolded on screens and in headlines. The stage was set for a story that would challenge the very nature of public funding in America, forcing the nation to confront difficult questions about who truly supports its institutions and at what cost. On October 24th, President Trump stunned the nation. A private citizen had offered a $130 million donation to help pay military salaries during the shutdown. The donor's identity was kept secret, described only as a great American patriot who insisted on anonymity. The Pentagon confirmed it would accept the gift, using its authority to receive unconditional donations for the pay and allowances of service members. The news dominated headlines, shifting attention from political gridlock to the mystery benefactor. Reporters and the public speculated feverishly. Who had both the means and the motive to make such a gift? Clues pointed to someone with immense wealth and political connections. The race to unmask the donor was on, and the answer would raise as many questions as it answered. The story was about to get even bigger. Within a day, the secret was out. The news spread like wildfire, capturing the attention of journalists, political analysts, and the public alike. Whispers about the identity of the mysterious donor quickly turned into a full-blown media frenzy, as speculation mounted and curiosity grew. The New York Times revealed the donor as Timothy Mellon, heir to one of America's most storied fortunes. The revelation sent shockwaves through political circles, as few had expected the reclusive billionaire to step into the spotlight in such a dramatic fashion. Mellon, a reclusive billionaire with a long history of political giving, was suddenly thrust into the spotlight. For years he had managed to keep his personal life and business dealings away from public scrutiny, rarely granting interviews or making public appearances. Grandson of Andrew W. Mellon, the legendary financier and Treasury Secretary, Timothy had long avoided public attention. The Mellon name is synonymous with American wealth and influence, but Timothy preferred to let his actions speak for themselves, quietly shaping his own legacy. He built his own wealth in transportation, investing in railroads and infrastructure, and lived quietly in Wyoming, far from the glare of Wall Street or Washington. Timothy often described a personal journey from youthful liberalism to staunch conservatism, a transformation that shaped his worldview and philanthropic choices. His donation was both a gesture of support for the military and a statement about government failure. Mellon believed that private citizens had a responsibility to step in where, in his view, the government had fallen short, especially when it came to supporting veterans and national security. Mellon's desire for anonymity fit his lifelong aversion to the limelight. He had always preferred to operate behind the scenes, letting his contributions speak louder than his words, and shunning the attention that so often accompanies great wealth. But now, the focus shifted. Was this simply generosity, or a powerful political move by a billionaire with a clear agenda. The public and the press began to question whether Mellon's gift was motivated by genuine concern or by a desire to influence policy and politics. The debate over his motives had only just begun, sparking conversations across the country about the role of wealth, influence, and secrecy in American democracy. To truly understand Timothy Mellon's actions, you have to look back at the remarkable legacy of his family, a legacy woven into the very fabric of American history. The Mellons are not just a wealthy family, they are a symbol of generational influence, ambition, and the power to shape society. The Mellons are one of America's great industrial dynasties, their fortune built by Andrew W. Mellon, who transformed the family's banking business into a vast empire. Through strategic investments in oil, aluminum, and finance, Andrew Mellon helped fuel the nation's industrial growth, amassing a fortune that would echo through generations. Andrew Mellon's influence extended far beyond business. As U.S. Treasury Secretary, he shaped economic policy during pivotal years, leaving a lasting mark on Washington, D.C. His vision for the arts led to the founding of the National Gallery of Art, a gift to the nation that still inspires millions. The Mellon family's tradition blended philanthropy with political power. They funded universities, hospitals, and cultural institutions, believing that private wealth could and should be used to advance the public good. Their generosity helped build the foundations of American education, healthcare, and culture, while their influence quietly shaped policy and society. Timothy Mellon inherited not just immense wealth, but also a powerful legacy, a belief in using private capital to shape public outcomes. Growing up surrounded by reminders of his family's impact, he learned that with great fortune comes both opportunity and responsibility. His $130 million donation was a modern echo of that ethos, a direct intervention in a national crisis, reminiscent of the bold actions taken by his ancestors. In a single stroke, he demonstrated how private individuals can still influence the course of public events. But this act also bypassed traditional political channels, raising important questions about the power and responsibility that come with great fortune. When private wealth steps in where public institutions falter, who decides what is best for society? In many ways, Mellon's act was simply the latest chapter in a long, complex story. A story of private wealth steering public affairs, and of a family whose influence continues to shape the nation's destiny. $130 million is a staggering sum, until you compare it to the scale of the U.S. military budget. The annual cost to pay all active duty service members is over $600 billion. A single 2-week payroll is nearly $6.4 billion. Mellon's donation, if split evenly, would give each service member about $100, not enough to cover even one payday. The gesture was symbolic, not a solution. It highlighted the irreplaceable role of government in funding national defense and the limits of even the largest private gifts. Supporters saw it as a morale boost. Critics warned it could create the illusion that philanthropy can replace public responsibility. The numbers made clear. Only government can meet the nation's true obligations. Mellon's donation wasn't his first foray into politics. It was the latest in a long line of massive contributions. He's poured hundreds of millions into conservative and populist causes, becoming a key financial backer of Donald Trump and, surprisingly, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. His $50 million gift to a pro-Trump super PAC in 2024 was one of the largest in history. Mellon's support for outsider candidates reflects a deep skepticism of mainstream institutions and a desire to disrupt the status quo. His military donation was both charity and a political statement, an implicit rebuke of a government he believes is failing. Critics argue that such megadonors wield outsized, undemocratic influence over public life. The debate over dark money and billionaire power was reignited by Mellon's unprecedented gift. Mellon's donation set off alarms among legal and ethics experts. The Anti-Deficiency Act prohibits federal agencies from spending money not appropriated by Congress, raising questions about the legality of using private funds for military pay. While the Pentagon cited its authority to accept gifts, critics warned this could undermine Congress's power of the purse. The ethical concerns ran deeper. What if future donors attach strings, seeking to influence military policy? The principle of a military funded by the public, not private interests, is foundational to American democracy. Relying on billionaire bailouts could reduce pressure on Congress to govern and blur the line of accountability. The troops swear allegiance to the Constitution, not to wealthy benefactors. Even well-intentioned gifts risk opening the door to conflicts of interest and undue influence. Mellon's donation split public opinion. Supporters hailed him as a patriot stepping up where politicians failed, praising his generosity and focus on the troops. Many saw his desire for anonymity as proof of noble intent. Critics, however, saw the gift as a symptom of a broken system, proof that essential government functions should never depend on the whims of billionaires. They worried about the precedent. Could the wealthy buy influence or undermine public institutions? For some, the act was a calculated political move, not pure altruism. The debate reflected deeper questions about wealth, power, and the proper role of government in American life. Mellon's $130 million gift set a precedent, one that's both inspiring and troubling. On one hand, it showed the potential for private generosity to bridge gaps during political crises. On the other, it risked normalizing private funding for public duties, weakening Congress's responsibility to govern. If government dysfunction is routinely patched by billionaires, the urgency to fix the system fades. The long-term danger public policy, shaped by the priorities of the wealthy, not the will of the people. Today, Mellon's donation stands as a cautionary tale about the intersection of wealth, power, and democracy. It's a reminder that generosity can't replace accountability. The real question: will America remain a nation where public duties are funded by all, or one where the privileged few fill the gaps left by a failing government?